Come on in, because we have breaking news. This is tonight. This is literally minutes ago. I'm going to tell you about the Maxx Crosby deal that has gone bad. And I got to tell you, this is groundbreaking stuff. There is going to be real beef between the Raiders and the Ravens on how this thing just went bad. Obviously, a couple days ago, we heard news that the Raiders and the Ravens entered a blockbuster deal for Maxx Crosby. And a lot of teams like the Chicago Bears, the Detroit Lions, the Cowboys. I mean, there was a lot of teams that were thinking maybe Maxx Crosby, right? Brad Holmes of the Detroit Lions recently said that was a real opportunity for them. They were serious about going after him. And then all of a sudden you hear that the Ravens, I think it was like the first time in 30 some years or something like that, that they ever gave away first round picks for Maxx Crosby, like in the history of the franchise. Don't quote me on this. It was something along those lines. And now tonight, this deal is off. This is one of the strangest, and I'm going to get into all of it. I'm going to get into all the aspects of this, what went wrong, where this is going, what could happen as a result of this, because this is serious. And so let me recap a little bit, okay? Because this is one of the strangest and most dramatic stories of the entire NFL offseason so far. The two teams had already agreed. The two teams, and I'm talking about the Ravens and the Raiders here, already agreed to a trade package that would have sent 2 first-round picks, including the Ravens' 2026 first-rounder, which is number 14 overall, and their 2027 first-round pick to the Raiders in exchange for Crosby, okay? So we had a deal there. That was not trade rumors. This was the deal that had already been agreed to in principle and widely reported. Maxx Crosby put a statement out. The only reason it wasn't official yet was because the new NFL league year hadn't started yet. Okay, I need to be very clear about that. Trades like that can't become official until the league year opens. And before that happened, the Ravens apparently decided to pull the plug entirely. And that's what's going on tonight. The Raiders released a blunt statement this evening saying Baltimore, and I quote, backed out of our trade agreement with zero additional explanation. And so now the entire NFL is asking the same question. What's going on? I'm going to tell you right now, there are a few possible explanations floating around some league circles, okay? The first possibility is the most common reason trades collapse in the NFL, a physical or medical concern. When big-name players like Maxx Crosby are traded, teams still review medical records and sometimes require physicals before finalizing said deals. Now, we know that Crosby has dealt with injuries in recent seasons, including surgery that ended his 2024 campaign early. And teams are always going to scrutinize the long-term outlook of a player before committing massive draft capital. And that's what the Ravens did, by the way. 2 first-round picks. And another possibility that this could have went bad is a financial one. Crosby signed a huge extension recently that made him one of the highest paid non-quarterbacks in the NFL with a deal over $100 million and more than $90 million of that guaranteed. When you trade for a player with that kind of a contract, you're not just giving up picks. You're also inheriting a financial commitment. It's possible the Ravens look deeper at the cap situation, the guarantees, or the future structure of the contract and said, you know what? Maybe we overpaid for the house here. Maybe we're getting some buyer's remorse. And then there's the football side of it. Baltimore may have simply reconsidered whether giving up 2 first-round picks for a pass rusher, even as elite as Crosby, was the right move for the roster. Obviously, Harbaugh's gone. Jesse Minter is there. He's a defensive guy. Who knows what kind of conversations were going on? Or maybe they saw something else in the draft and they're thinking, you know what? We could blow our first round pick on that guy. And we don't really need Maxx Crosby. Some reports right now are already suggesting that the Ravens could pivot to a different pass rusher, not necessarily one in the draft, but instead of paying that premium price to the Raiders. So in other words, the Ravens might have looked at their options and decided, similar production elsewhere without sacrificing that much draft capital. Here's where this gets really complicated, because this decision doesn't just affect Baltimore. It puts the Raiders in an awkward spot now, because they were already under the impression that this deal is going forward. We got these picks. They've been making deals. They just got rid of Geno Smith today. I mean, there's been deals left and right. They're literally making deals under the impression that they got these picks and that they're moving forward. Come to find out, that deal isn't happening at all. From Las Vegas's perspective, that trade was already part of their offseason plan. We are not far away from the draft, folks. They were preparing to add 2 first-round picks and reshape their roster around draft capital. Now that plan has gone up in smoke. The team had effectively signaled they were willing to move on from Crosby, despite some people saying, no, that's not true. Obviously it was. And I'm going to tell you right now, that complicates the relationship between Maxx Crosby and the Raiders now. Because now Crosby knows they're willing to get rid of him. They're willing to deal him. And when a player believes he's been traded, when he knows they're ready to sell him, he emotionally prepares to leave, and then the deal collapses, it's going to create a little tension behind the scenes. I don't care what their PR department says. Oh, no, Max loves it here. He loves to be a Raider. Yeah, I don't care. No, now he's got to go back home. His new girlfriend broke up with him. You got to go home now. This could absolutely sour the relationship between the Raiders and the Ravens. In the NFL, handshake agreements matter. When a trade is agreed upon publicly and then one team backs out at the last minute, that ain't going to sit well. Teams remember that kind of thing during future negotiations. And I'm not even talking about just the Raiders. You don't think other NFL teams are keeping an eye on this? They are. They're looking at the Ravens right now like, what's going on over there? If this isn't a physical thing, this is not going to look good on the Ravens. If we find out that Maxx Crosby is in great health and this has nothing to do with his health, this is not going to look good on the Ravens. The Raiders essentially had a blockbuster move lined up. Everybody made announcements. The Raiders, the Ravens, Crosby, and then Baltimore just pulls the rug out from under everybody before the paperwork became official. And so now the big question becomes, what are they going to do with Crosby? Because technically he's still a Raider. Nothing has changed other than both organizations and Maxx Crosby embarrassing themselves. The trade never became official, which means Crosby remains under contract in Las Vegas. But the reality is the situation feels very different now. The door has been opened in Las Vegas. Period. And with a pass rusher as elite as Maxx Crosby, a 5-time Pro Bowler who has been one of the most disruptive defenders in football. I mean, he is a stud muffin. There will absolutely be other teams interested. There were. Reports have already suggested multiple teams were pursuing him before the Ravens deal came together. Maybe those other teams are ticked off now. Maybe they put up offers to the Raiders and the Raiders said, oh, no. I got the Ravens over here. 2 first-round picks. We're going with that. Right? So the deal comes out. These other teams are made aware of it. Now the Raiders got to go back to these other teams hat in hand. I'm sorry. Do you still want him? Do you still want to make a deal here? We didn't get paid for him, so he's still available. You think they're going to offer you think those teams are going to offer the same packages? I don't know. Maybe they're not happy. Maybe they didn't like the way it ended between them and Las Vegas. Eagles, Bears, Lions, other contenders were reportedly in the mix previously for this deal. And now the Raiders, they could circle back with new offers, but maybe some of those other teams have already made moves. Teams have been making moves all week, guys. All week they've been doing deals. All of a sudden, Crosby's off the radar. Okay, cool. He's in a deal with Baltimore. We're going to go do this. Just kidding. Just kidding. Was anybody still in line? We're open for business again on Crosby. Not good. Not good optics for Baltimore. Not at all. But this brings me to the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions have been loosely connected to Crosby in trade speculation for a while now. Okay, and I've talked about this in my other segments. There's actually a segment on our YouTube channel right now specifically about Crosby and the Lions. Go listen to that if you haven't already. But there's some obvious reasons why, okay? Number one, he's from Michigan. Okay. Number two, he played college football at Eastern Michigan University. Number three, he fits exactly what the Lions want on defense. How many times have you heard people talk about helping Hutchinson? That they want a relentless edge rusher who plays with a motor that never stops. That's Maxx Crosby. Crosby is the type of player that fits the culture built by head coach Dan Campbell and general manager Brad Holmes. Full stop. Tough guy, gritty, will go all game, doesn't want to be benched even when he's injured. You don't think he's built for Detroit? He is. They know that. Brad Holmes himself acknowledged a couple weeks ago that the Lions were evaluating potential pass rush additions, and Crosby's name had been discussed internally. Seriously. Detroit has been looking for a high-end complement to Hutchinson ever since Hutchinson became the centerpiece of their defensive front. Crosby would create instantly, one of the most terrifying pass rush duos in football, in all of football. But I'm going to tell you right now, the same issue remains. The price. If Baltimore was offering 2 first-round picks, that's the market. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, Detroit has a lot of picks coming into this draft. A lot. Detroit has 9 NFL picks in the 2026 draft. Okay, so it ain't like they ain't got firepower. Now, do they want to give up 2 first-rounders? I don't know. But the fact that Las Vegas got 2 from Baltimore, well, even though they didn't get them, that was what they were talking about, obviously that's going to be the starting point for negotiations. And Brad Holmes has historically been careful about sacrificing future draft capital. He don't like to do that. But he's got a lot of picks, though. The Lions have built their rosters through the draft, developing young players rather than constantly swinging big in trades. This is not what they like to do. They like to pick guys in the draft. That said, Detroit is in a very different place right now than they were a few years ago. They are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Their window is open right now. When you're in that position, sometimes you do make the aggressive move to push a championship roster over the top. We've seen this with the Pistons. We've seen this with the Red Wings. Why? Because they're ready for the playoffs. They're ready to contend. And Crosby would absolutely qualify as that kind of move for the Lions. He is one of the most productive edge rushers in the league, with nearly 70 career sacks and an incredible reputation for effort and leadership. Pairing him with Aiden Hutchinson would force offenses to pick their poison on every snap. It would be a nightmare for quarterbacks. Double one and get the one on the other side. Slide protection one direction and the other one becomes vulnerable. So while the Ravens backing out of this trade shocks everybody and frankly looks bad on them, unless we find out something else is going on, it also reopens a door here. The Raiders now have to decide whether they want to keep Crosby and try to repair the relationship or revisit trade talks with other teams ready to buy. And if that door opens again, which it is right now, and since that door is open again right now, I'm going to tell you something. The Lions are a team everybody's going to be watching because they're on the list. If Brad Holmes decides that this is the moment to go all in, if this is it, if this is the go all in moment, If Detroit believes they are one defensive piece away from a Super Bowl, then the collapse of this Ravens deal could suddenly turn into a major opportunity for the Detroit Lions. And that's why this story isn't over yet. We're going to be keeping an eye on it. We're going to be watching it, delivering it to you all. Keep it locked. You're listening to Midnight Sports Detroit.